our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are. And like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas, and we have wonderful guests. And we have a young man with some wonderful ideas about unity and consciousness. And I am so delighted to bring on Isaac Mars. You will find him delightful, I'm sure. Hello, how are you?
I am fantastic today, Gail. It was a pleasure meeting you this weekend. What a wonderful conference we had, right?
Oh, it was. I enjoyed it immensely and met a lot of wonderful people and guests and so on. It was cool. I liked it.
Beautiful.
Good old Thunderbeat. She puts together a good show.
Exactly.
Well, you have this book out, and I have a copy of it too. It's called Unity Theory. And I didn't know, yeah, our reflection's a little funny, but it's very interesting topic at this time. It's also very timely. And I would like to give you the floor to kind of go where you want to go about it. Maybe tell a little bit more about yourself and then take it from there. And maybe we'll get questions too, because it looks like we got a hello from somebody. So you might get a few questions along the way. So
sounds great. If anybody has any questions, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about me, what I'm doing, and then if you have anything to interject at any point, Gail, just let me know. And if not, I'll just jump straight into a very brief version of my PowerPoint from the conference this past weekend. And if anybody's interested in checking that out, then they can find me on my YouTube channel, which I'll be on the show later on. So a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know, I am Isaac Mars. I am a self-taught physicist, meaning I do not have a formal degree within the matrix. I basically had a full left brain spiritual awakening, which is kind of peculiar. Most of the people that I meet, especially in Sedona, have experienced a spiritual experience or an intuitive experience, a feeling of oneness that completely changed everything for them, and they could see through the veil of illusion even for a brief time. But that experience is what was the catalyst for their awakening. But for me, I was a very different case. I was working on a science fiction novel that I had spent years crafting in regard to the characters, the plot lines, the timelines. And I finally started writing the book in the beginning of 2021. And in late January of that year, I realized by the second chapter that I needed to describe time to my readers. And after I started to research what Einstein had known about time through the theory of relativity and what mainstream physics knows about time, I started to piece together different points from the theory of relativity, from quantum mechanics, from Nikola Tesla's work, and then powerful philosopher and metaphysicist Alan Watts brought everything together full circle. And in that experience, I logically realized that I am the entire universe, and so is everybody else, and including all the ants, all the birds, all the animals. Everything in this reality is holographic or holodynamic, meaning that, just like Rumi said, we are not a drop in the ocean, we are the entire ocean in a single drop. And when we realize that, we begin to see how we can step into our full potential. And the truth is, it is far more simple, and not easy, but effortless than we have ever been taught. Because the entire point of the matrix of mainstream society is to keep us disempowered. The reason for that is if they don't create institutionally constructed systems to keep us limited, then our inherent limitlessness that we are, the fractal of infinity that we are, we would grow beyond any sort of limitation on this planet, like that. It would be overnight. So, philosophically speaking, learning how the universe is holodynamic, we see that this is crucial for our limited human experience. And in some channelings that I've heard and resonated with from certain channelers, they have claimed, speaking on behalf of these higher dimensional beings, that we are the masters of limitation. And I truly believe that. When you look at anything in the Matrix, it's all guided to keep us small. It's guided to keep us tiny. It's guided to keep us separate. Because if we think we're small, then we're right. If we think that other people are enemies or strangers, or I don't know them, so stay away from me, then that's the reality we create. And as Einstein said, one of my greatest predecessors, the world as we know it is a product of our thinking. We cannot change it without changing our thinking. And that's what I'm here to disclose to the world. Most of us think that our judgments in our mind on other people or ourselves are harmless. Most of us think that our thoughts don't go beyond our mind in our own consciousness. But the truth is, in a holodynamic universe, everything is completely quantumly interconnected, meaning that any thought that you have is just as physical as you waving your arm around, for example. And when we have that awareness, then we begin to think, okay, what thoughts am I choosing to think, or am I choosing to allow into my mind? What thoughts or emotions am I allowing to run my life and dictate my actions and my responses to the people in it? And when we become more aware of how this all affects our reality, and we learn through trial and error, through our own experience, that things like the 12 universal laws are true, then we see that what we think creates our reality. How we feel creates our reality. And the more that we hold on to those old, obsolete energies of a literal, measurable lower vibration, we are choosing to experience a lower vibrational reality, a reality full of suffering and pain and division. But
in lies.
On the contrary, what's that, Gail?
I said, and lies.
Right. Yeah. Dishonesty,
Lies,
anything
yes.
negative basically comes from low vibration. It comes from fear and conditional love. So what Yeshua, or most people know him as Jesus, taught us 2,000 years ago is that unconditional love is the opposite side of the coin to that fear, to that limited experience. And that limitlessness from that unconditional love is how we are going to create heaven on earth here and now. That's how we're going to fulfill the prophecies. That's how we're going to gather the tribe of Israel. Israel meaning the people of God. Well, who are the people of God right now? When I look at mainstream society and I look at all the religions, I look at the Christians, I look at the Muslims, they claim to be people of God, but what are they doing to truly better the world when most of the things that they're doing in these mainstream arenas are built to divide, built to cause shame and doubt and guilt, fear.
Yep.
So these things are institutionally doing the exact opposite. We live in a backwards reality. Essentially, out of all the realities that could ever exist, this is the world of the unreality. It is the most unreal reality that could ever exist, because magic doesn't even exist here, at least to most people. And that's the exciting thing about the age of Aquarius, Gail, is this is the time when magic becomes normalized, when miracles become regular occurrences in our everyday lives. And before we know it, it's going to get so stupendously magical that even mainstream media will start to report and record monumental, reality-shifting, world-changing events that we are going to experience in our lifetimes, all of us, including you, Gail. And not a single one of us needs to be left out of it if we don't want to, because the more that we learn about how reality works, then the more we realize none of us have to clock out if we don't want to. We can reverse age. Aging, for example, this is one thing I didn't get to in my talk over the weekend, but I really wanted to put a slide in there. Aging is a mental illness within the collective consciousness.
Yes.
We are taught, oh, you age, you get old, you're gonna get ill, and then your hair's gonna go gray. And that's not the normal thing in any other plane in this reality. In any other reality, we determine how fast we age. We decide, oh yeah, this would be a good length of life in comparison relative to the other species within the universe. And humans are creating these horrible experiences, getting cancer and tumors. That's not going to be my reality, not for 1 minute. And when a bunch of us at this level of awareness begin to co-create from that energy, and we gather together, we unify our intentions, that will create a huge shift within the entire collective consciousness, because anything of a higher vibrational nature is innately more powerful than low vibration. So if most of the world wants to create from a low vibration perspective, that's fine. But once we get this bubble reality, this small collective consciousness of people with extremely refined vibrations, then the collective low vibration, that's not the main way that we create. That's not the main source of this reality. We would become the main source of this reality, meaning we would respect all those beings that have those low vibration experiences, but our authority would take the reins of the whole story, and we would immediately activate abilities, reverse age, have static ages. For example, I was guided on my 27th birthday to always be 27 for as long as I need to be. When somebody asks me, come September 2nd this year, how old are you? I'm going to say I'm 27. And the year after that, I'm going to say I'm 27. And if people ask me how long I've been on the planet, then they'll get a different answer. 28 years, for example, is how long I've been walking the planet right now. But the more that we all begin to believe in the unbelievable, the more that the unbelievable will begin to manifest. And the laws of physics, quote unquote, that we have been taught will be completely reimagined. The laws of physics are only what they are because we have been taught that's what they are. So yeah, it's a very exciting time, Gail. Do you have anything to...
It is. Well, I was going to ask you, do you think that they're keeping us in this, and plus we're responsible as well, in this lower vibration of fear-based thinking is actually also part of what hinders our innate gifts and abilities that are greater than what most people think that they have?
Oh, absolutely. That's right on the money. The biggest issue in the lives of star seeds are the programs. That's what it comes down to. In the programs, for example, I heard from multiple people, if I'm not mistaken, about a story in China where a young girl who was born with her gifts intact. She was able to wave her hand to an audience of people all holding unblossomed roses. And the second that her hand went like this across the audience, all the roses in the entire audience bloomed and were in full blossom. And the Chinese military allegedly tried to harness her abilities for their own purposes, and they tried to force her to do it. And the second they tried to force her to do anything, she went into fear and she couldn't even do it anymore. So that's the reality of how important the energies are that we carry within our being. There's a lot of people out there in the spiritual communities and the awakened communities that, there is a level of, oh, I've already done the work. Oh, I'm already here. But the thing is, if we think that we're already done with the work and we're not levitating, we're not flying yet, we're not, going on a diet of sun and air and water and that's it, then there are ways where we can still grow. There's ways where we can still tap into our superhuman capabilities. And that's the next step for humanity.
The more I know, the more I realize how much I don't know, and there's more to learn.
Absolutely.
Being a of life.
Absolutely. And that's something that I feel in my heart too, is I like to teach a lot about these new physics that we're reawakening to, but the thing is, I am a student just as much as anybody else. And when we start to learn how this reality works, then the less we ever judge anybody for where they're at or how we're perceiving them.
Yeah.
Because when we are truly being that ultimate presence of unconditional love, we know that reality just is. It's just a happening. And it always is going to be a happening. And in that presence, that awareness, nothing can harm us. Nothing can take our peace away from us. And that's what I'm here to help people do, is tap into that potential that exists within all of us.
Do you hope to do this through the concepts that you're presenting, or will you be holding classes? Obviously you do presentations, which is how I got to see you.
Absolutely. So there's going to be an organic shift in my work. And essentially right now I'm on the phase about raising awareness. So
Yes.
as I continue to talk more and more about this at conferences, on interviews such as this, and other situations, then we can raise awareness to unity theory, how the universe works. And then organically, I am also a spiritual guide. So over this natural shift in the energy, I'm going to be working with others, collaborating on retreats and collective evolution experiences. And what a collective evolution experience is, when I'm running it, is specifically we get a large group of people that are all ready to let go of trauma, to let go of old cycles. And we would get in a circle and we would all start sharing about the difficulties that we are going through, that we are transforming. And as a facilitator in one of those experiences, which most likely would be me in many of these scenarios, is reflecting back to the individual on the part of the circle, what they're going through and how they may have got there, what the root consciousness or the root source in their consciousness that is manifesting that cycle, where that's coming from. Then the entire group can share in that awareness, in that experience. Being so close, all of our fields being connected, it's basically an immediate upload or download into our body, into our spirit, about how we can approach similar situations of similar energies in our linear future. So the entire universe wants us to unify. When we're doing all these things, we're working on ourselves, but we're doing it all alone, we're still contributing to separation. When we start to do this together, then we all benefit from each other's lessons, and we can all graduate them much more rapidly in terms of linear time. And that's what I'm excited for, because when we start doing the collective work, not only will we mentally transform these cycles, we will literally feel it within our being. And the more that we release these low vibrational energies, the less gunk essentially we have in our spiritual pipelines. And the less gunk there is, the lighter we feel. The lighter we feel, the easier life gets, and more effortlessly our manifestations are created. And that's going to happen over time. But the main thing is making this science mainstream. I've worked with, well, why don't I share a few slides? Is it about a good time for that, Gail? All right.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to share my screen. All right, I'm sharing my screen. And then got this PowerPoint here.
Make this a little bigger.
All right, can you see it, Gail?
Yes, I can.
All right. So this was my talk, the title of my talk from this weekend at the Sedona Cosmic Awakening Conference. And this is all about awakening from the matrix. So I'm not going to go into nearly as much detail as my talk on the weekend, but I do have a few important slides that I'd like to share with your community and any viewers that come across this in the linear future. To jump right in, the reason that I go by the Crimson Eagle is because as soon as I figured out the implications of how the universe works, I realized that I could see the entire matrix for what it was. Everything that I had ever, perceived of in terms of the illusion, I was able to see the truth. So immediately, almost overnight, I was able to discern what illusions were there and how they were affecting us, how they were disempowering us at the collective level. So that's where I came up with my moniker. And furthermore, the red color represents the divine feminine. And that's the main reason that I always wear red, whether it's my leather jacket or my red suit. I want to be an emissary of the goddess and to reframe the energy of that color, because a lot of the patterns within patterns of this reality use red as a negative, quote unquote, color. So it's all about tapping into our inner goddess, our inner feminine, because that's where the infinite potential exists. And to do this at the collective level, I have the book Unity Theory. And for those of you who aren't aware, ever since the days of Albert Einstein, the theory of relativity and the findings of quantum mechanics have been, there has been an attempt to marry them together into one process for decades upon decades. I mean, we're coming up on just shy of 7 centuries, I think, something around or 7 decades, something like that. And unity theory does just that. It takes the findings of quantum mechanics, it takes the findings of relativity, marries them together. It describes about how gravity, dark energy, and dark matter work. And it's the first thing to ever do that. You know, no other scientist in human history could even explain what dark matter is, what dark energy are, and explain it clearly and describe how it works. When I showed unity theory to Victor Vernon Wolfe, PhD, the father of holodynamics, the first thing he said to me after he read it was, well, it's not a theory. And that was it. Those were the only words he said to me, basically confirming that everything that I had discovered and I had reported in the book was absolutely correct. And he ended up writing a review as well that is on my website, but since I have a little bit of time here, I can read it for you. It says, "We were born to be part of the greatest transition in history. This book shares a unique perspective of how the principles of natural science are reflected in your personal life and how that has established productive relationships with others in the world around you. During this unique time of lifting the multidimensional veil, as we are experiencing moving from a state of conditioned slavery into an experience of self-potentialization, this book can serve as a roadmap for others on the path of reuniting with our true family." Victor Vernon Wolfe, PhD. So to be told by this legend, this powerful being, that not only am I on the right track, I am disclosing the truth, the reality of how, well, reality works. It was so empowering, and that just pushed me forward in my impetus and my momentum. And since then, I've only met other scientists that are agreeing with my theory. I can't find a single one that can discredit it, that can argue against it, because all the concepts in my book use something called geometrical symmetrical logic, meaning that these concepts are essentially as inarguable as 2 + 2 = 4 because all variables have been accounted for. So I'm going to go into that right now with the biggest takeaway from unity theory, and that's how time works, how it exists, how we exist within it, and what it means for consciousness. And the way we do this is through the infinity mirror thought experiment, or what I am now calling the infinity mirror proof. And this is how we're going to break limitation through scientific certainty. In the thought experiment, I took a being such as myself or any viewer watching this, and this being, this observer, represents the present moment. And then in my thought experiment, as I was first envisioning how I can imagine all of time happening at once, I thought, okay, the present moment's happening right now. This makes sense metaphorically and symbolically because I can move my arms and the present moment's always in flux. Okay, well, what if the past is happening right now at the same time? How can I reflect on that? And then when I thought of the word reflect, it was like, ding, 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 there's something there. And I continued to think about it in that manner, and I imagined the past as a mirror. So there I had the present moment represented by the observer, looking into their past, which was represented by the mirror. They're both happening at the same time. Everything makes sense so far. And we often literally say that we reflect on our past, and in a sort of way we can see our past, just like how in this example the observer is seeing their self in the mirror. Then I thought, well, time is on a timeline. That's what we always say. So the future must be just as symmetrical as the past. So I imagined another mirror behind the present moment, behind that observer. And this made sense with metaphorical logic because we often literally cannot see the future. And in that moment, with the person that represents the present looking into the past with the future mirror on the other side of them, perfectly parallel, I realized that the present moment was infinitely reflected into the past, into the future, because the present is the representation of the now. And in this realization, I had the epiphany that all of these moments on the single timeline already exist. Much like a train, a person cannot reach the end of their life unless all of the tracks are already laid, all of the reality frames already exist. So this was a little bit spooky because at this level, I was like, wait a second, there's no free will there. I'm just riding on this roller coaster of experiences. But then I thought to myself, no, I know free will is real. I know it. I can just feel it in my heart. So I began to imagine how I could account for that using the same mirror experiment. So I took what I would call timeline X, and I imagine, what if I went to a pizza shop for breakfast, for dinner, and I thought, okay, here's timeline Y. Instead of pizza, I'm going to go get Chinese or something. And I thought, well, that's just one example of a decision. And how many other choices could I make? I could go to get Mexican food. I could go to get Thai. And we're always constantly making decisions throughout our lives. So I thought, well, at the end of the day, there are an infinite number of decisions. And in that epiphany, in that moment, I took the past mirror and the future mirror, and I infinitely multiplied it around the present moment, and I got the infinity mirror sphere. And this sphere is a perfect example of geometric unity, because from the center point of the sphere to every possible point on the surface of the sphere, there are an infinite number of points, or in this thought experiment, there are an infinite number of timelines, meaning that the only way that we could have free will, the linear experience of time, which is the shifting on the singular timeline, and for all of time to happen at once, there absolutely has to be infinite realities, infinite timelines, infinite moments, whatever way you want to look at it. Our existence is completely infinite. We are the singularity of all possibilities. And when we realize that, that means there is absolutely no limit to our potential. And recently, not originally in my book, but over the past few months, I came up with / received from my full potential self the diagram that you see before you now, called the triune model. And a triune is a trinity. It is a 3-in-1. And one day I was just sitting in my apartment, and suddenly I thought, I need to find a way to describe reality simplistically to help us get out of our shadow, to help us get out of our mental slavery. And that's when I got this download. And essentially, if you're looking at it, I have simplified this as much as I can. What you see before you are 2 levels of awareness. At the higher level, you see the truth of unity, which is represented by the all. The all is everything. It is the entire universe. And from this state of awareness, we see reality as non-dual, meaning there is no good or bad. Everything simply is. And then if you look at the lower level of awareness, you'll see an icky dark line that shows how the all is separated through perception into both the shadow and the light. And this is what creates the illusion of separation. And this is the great ego trap of duality that keeps us limited, keeps us separated, keeps us easily manipulated as a people. And the ego trap not only keeps us in that good and bad, but it also suppresses our inner child and continues to suppress and oppress our feminine side. So in this reality, because all of the spiritual teachers, all of the channelers throughout hundreds to thousands of years have all reported the same pattern, and that is the sun or soul, S-O-L, is represented by a male energy, and Gaia, Earth, is represented by a female energy. And these energies are in this sort of divine union. So for Earth to lower her vibration down to this level of 3D reality, of suffering, of pain, she chose to experience that pain as well. For example, we are essentially the thoughts of her consciousness. We are creations of her literal energy. You know, the makeup of our bodies is Gaia. And so in this reality, the feminine energy is not bad. It is simply the energy that has been demonized and traumatized to host what we would call parasitic programming. And that parasitic programming is fear itself, because fear can only exist if we feed it. And on the other side of the triune model, we see blue representing the masculine energy. And masculine energy is not good. It is simply the energy that has been conditioned and programmed to feed the parasitic programming of fear. And I'll explain this in a little bit more detail in a few slides from now. So this has been helping me tap into my greater awareness of how I can be more fully present with myself, because the only time that Isaac really exists is when I'm in that non-dualistic state. And I'll explain why in a moment. So at the top, we have the all, which represents unity, non-dualism, quantum consciousness. Remember, this is the quantum interconnectivity of everything within the universe. Everything imaginable simply is. And the way that we create harmony in this experience through the awareness of the all is through neutrality. It's no longer good and bad. It is accepting things as they are, because acceptance is part of unconditional love. And to reach our full potential with this awareness, all we must do is balance our masculine, feminine, and inner child, that sacred trinity. A good example of the all is unity theory. It is essentially a crystallization of the information of the consciousness that we are here to embody as warriors of light, warriors of the rainbow from the Hopi prophecy. And to do that, all we need to do is walk the walk. You know, there's a lot of talking going on, and there has been for hundreds to thousands of years, but now it's time to walk the walk in the age of Aquarius. And the thing about unity theory is that it corroborates the truth behind the 12 universal laws, the law of attraction, the law of correspondence, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. All of these laws are extremely real, meaning what we think, what we emanate in terms of our thoughts and our emotions and our feelings, that creates our reality. So since there are infinite realities per the infinity mirror proof, then what experience do you want to have? Do you want to have an infinitely high vibration experience or an infinitely low vibration experience that could be, you know, akin to what we would imagine hell to be? Because really that's what we're doing in this unreal reality that we're living in. Then we have the light. Now, I bet most of you watching this would think that the light is a good thing. But the thing is, that's the whole trick. That's what we've been programmed to believe. We've been programmed to believe that light is good and darkness is bad. But that is the illusion of separation. And the light is the embodiment of inequality consciousness, in the sense that if somebody believes themselves to be righteous, they may look down on others and they may judge them for making decisions that that individual wouldn't make themselves. It's also the embodiment of the savior experience, where we believe we need to go out and save the world and we need to change things because it's all messed up. But the thing is, when we're doing that, we're actually unconsciously projecting our need to be saved. We're projecting our desire for someone to help us onto everybody else. And that's not what's going to ultimately help the world. And the truth about our charged light, I'm saying charged in terms of our psychology on the planet, because we have charged up our light to be this sort of protector, savior persona, we actually become enslaved to it. And it's the fear and the emotions that we have within us that are tapped into to sort of manipulate our light into doing things that we think are coming from us, but it's actually not. And this creates a reality of overactive masculinity and the suppression of our femininity and inner child. And this is the path to perpetual slavery, which is what we're all liberating ourselves from in this age. And a good example of the light, believe it or not, is Joe Biden. This brother is doing everything that the light, wants us to do on a very public level. He is trying to save the world. He's trying to help people. But the thing is, he is enslaved through fear into playing that role. How many of you think that the president's position is a puppet position? Well, that's an example of what our light does in our individual lives. Then we have the shadow. Again, this is more of the illusion of separation, the idea that the shadow is bad. But this is what taps into our ego. This is not heart consciousness. This is the embodiment of separation consciousness and the victim experience. And the thing about the victim experience is the universe creates what we are putting out for us to experience. So if I think I'm a victim and I keep putting that energy out and people keep validating that and, oh yeah, you're a victim, then that's all I'm going to be experiencing. So that awareness, that level of consciousness actually perpetuates war. It perpetuates suffering when we believe we are victims. It's when we believe that we are victors and that we are overcomers that we can rise above anything. And in rising, learn more about heart consciousness, learn more about the truth of this reality, and create from that higher level of awareness. The shadow is fed by harnessing our fear energy. The more afraid we are, the more the shadow can take root and jump into the driver's seat. Or, like a master illusionist, it will feed thought forms in a parasitic sense to our mind and to our light and say, oh, you should judge that person. They're doing something horrible. You should go and hurt them, or you should put them in jail. That's what they deserve. But the thing is, that just perpetuates more separation. So when our light listens to the shadow, that's when we really shoot ourselves in the foot. The shadow is the path to perpetual suffering. So in duality, we're suffering and we're enslaved. So that's why the real version of us exists within the awareness of non-duality. A good example of the shadow is a character such as 11 from Stranger Things. Now, I don't have any, real life examples, real being from this reality, that I can use that paints such a clear, perfect image of how traumatized our collective shadow is, other than this character. I've met individuals like that in this reality, but I imagine they don't want me using their likeness. The point I'm making is that 11 has gone through almost all of the darkness that most of our shadow has gone through in this world. She was taken and studied by scientists, poked and prodded and tortured until her abilities were able to be used. She had to run away. She's been chased. She's been attacked by the dark agenda. And this is that victim experience. This is that consciousness that is heavily damaged and needs healing. But the thing is, the only way it can heal is when it's taught how to heal, because nobody can heal anybody else for them. Nobody can save anybody else for them. We are our own saviors. So this is what happens in a world that is mentally governed. And as you can see on my screen, the words govern, mental create a very interesting word that we use in our daily lives. And as we can see, to govern is to control the actions or behavior of, and mental is pertaining to the mind. So what does governmental mean? It is to control the actions or behavior of the mind. So finishing up, not taking too long on this slideshow, here is a reimagining of the triune model. Now take a closer look and you'll see that the all, the shadow, and the light have been replaced. and so has feminine energy, masculine energy, and the inner child. And I've replaced them with these definitions to give you more clarity as to how important they are and how you can perceive them clearly. At the top, instead of the all, we have the self, or what we could call the true self. Again, that's the only place where Isaac Mars really exists. And when we go down to fear, we see, or the shadow, we see it's now the parasite. Again, fear can only exist in our experience if we feed it, if we give it power. The second we stop feeding it, it starts to diminish, it starts to go hungry, and eventually it will completely evaporate from our experience. And then we have, aside from the parasite, over on the side of the light, we now see the slave. We thought that our light was helping us, but that was the big trap. That was the ego trap. When we see our light as the slave, we can go into that neutrality, that non-duality, and we can accept everything as it is, since everything right now is already perfect. And we can still express ourselves. We can still speak our truth, even if it is, oh, I need to go help these people. If that's your truth, that's your truth. The whole point is to be aware of what you're choosing, to be aware of if your thoughts are actually coming from you, the true self, in that non-dualistic state, or are they coming from the traumatized emotions of the parasite? Are they coming from the hero savior like programs of the slave self or the light self? And in that neutrality, we can see clearly. Again, if you look at how feminine, masculine, and inner child have been replaced, the feminine part of us is the infinite mind. It is all infinite realities that are not happening right now. And that infinite potential is what leads us to synchronicity. That's what leads us to soul family. And if we shut down the infinite mind with trauma, with programming, then we get stuck in the singular mind, the masculine mind. And the singular mind is represented by this moment right now. This one moment out of all the infinite is the only real thing that exists in this experience. And when we take the infinite mind and the singular mind and we marry them together and we add an element of purity, of wholeness, of joy, then that is where we take these three energies, the masculine, feminine, and inner child, and combine them all together to create the full potential self. And in that energy, there is nothing that we cannot overcome. This is the most simple way of viewing reality. And if you, listening to this, watching this, decide to operate from this perspective, I guarantee you will start to see reality reflect back to you the most joyful, abundant, fulfilling experiences that you have ever had up until this point. Because we didn't even know. We forgot that we have been using our limitless capabilities against ourselves the whole time. So how do we create heaven on earth? Well, we bring the science of unity to mainstream society. Most people on this planet have no idea what's happening. And the only way that I see this helping them is by making it simple and easily accessible. And that's where unity theory comes into play. At my website, you can get unity theory for free or love donation. It's available to everyone. And again, I haven't found a single scientist that can argue against it. So if people out there start getting creative and they start calling out these scientists, these mainstream scientists, and for example, Lawrence Krauss is a good one to call out, or even Elon Musk in Tesla and SpaceX, to call out these people and say, hey, what you're doing is not even taking into account how reality actually works. Why don't you, talk to Isaac Mars, get this figured out? And only when that happens will we be able to finally tip the scales in our favor. This thing will go mainstream, and then the cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is open for the better of this world. Another thing that we need to do is fulfill and break the contracts that we have with this parasitic power system. Something that I didn't go into during this little slideshow, but I did get into over the weekend, is the SESTA KV Act. And the thing about the SESTA KV Act is we are contracting with it from the moment we're born and we get a birth certificate. And that is essentially the fuel system for the matrix. Listen to that again. Your likeness, your all caps name on your birth certificate, on all your corporate documents, your legal documents in the matrix, that is in contract with governmental energies. And those beings, those corporations, which are dead paper entities, are using that likeness, that all caps name, to make millions and billions of dollars off of your life force energy behind your backs. So the only way to stop that from happening is to fulfill the Sesta KV Act. And what is necessary to do that is to provide proof of life with witnesses. This is something that I help people through here in Sedona, Arizona. If you're interested in learning more, then you can find my email with the information at the end of my slideshow. Another thing we have to do in order to create heaven on earth is to unify within an exomatrix organization that mirrors our universal nature. And what that means is this system must be something that is not attached to parasitic corporations. It must be an idea or a state of beingness that can be universal, that can work for everyone in a manner that reflects water and the path of least resistance, something that reflects vibration. And as you can see in this picture to the left, that's exactly what I'm doing with my exomatrix organization, Life Force. Right now, it's in the early beginning stages, but as I release more content and I explain the premise of Life Force to the world, this thing is going to blow up. Because Life Force is all about unifying us without taking away from our individuality. And that's what we need. We need a system based on vibration. We need a system that can create the structures that we need based on the systems that we currently have. And by doing this, by unifying on this level, we will dissolve all borders. We will dissolve all walls, all barriers that keep us from unity consciousness at the global level. And last but not least, by any means, we must live by the spiritual compass of pure, unconditional love. And that is non-duality at its finest. So for those of you who are just, learning about me, know that I am here to disclose the true science of reality and spirituality. My goal is to end all mental slavery. What I am here to do is to be a living example of heart and unity consciousness. And that's the only reason I've been able to go from where I was, in 2021, practically being a nobody, to speaking on powerful stages with powerful speakers alongside myself in such a short amount of time. And I am here also to unify our brothers and sisters of the Rainbow Tribe. What we are doing right now in this special age is fulfilling prophecy. So for those of you that want to get on board with me and that want to collaborate and want to help make this science go mainstream, this is my information. I am the Crimson Eagle, and you can find me at thecrimsoneagle.com. You can add me as a friend or follow me on Facebook under Isaac Mars, and all of my handles on Instagram, YouTube, basically all platforms, you can find me under @thecrimsoneagle. It's been an honor sharing the slideshow with you, and I'll get back to Gail. You there, Gail?
Yes, I'm sorry. I muted myself because of some, and then I forgot to put it back on. But anyway, thank you so much for that presentation. It really gives people something to really think about. And,
absolutely. I love making things very simple for people. And yeah, when the information is right in front of our faces, it's like, all right, are we going to work with it, or are we just going to allow it to keep happening? You can't really put the cat back in the box, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. There was some statement that you made, and I think you've covered it somewhat too, but I just want to revisit it for a second. And that is that the true science is spirituality. Is that what you said, or did I say that wrong?
Yeah, no. This is the science of spirituality.
Spirituality.
And what the point I'm making is the science of spirituality is the true science. That is the truest science that could ever be. And that's why for thousands of years, these yogis and these gurus and these monumental leaders like Yeshua and Gautama Buddha, that's why they were all saying the same thing. It's all right in front of our eyes, and it's hidden within every religion. Religion basically took spirituality and the true science of reality, and then it added a bunch of red herrings. It added a bunch of plot twists and trickster energy to keep us, convoluted and confused.
A lot of negatives, guilt, sin, just being ashamed, being just all very low vibrational concepts.
Exactly. And the biggest thing about this new awareness, this new science, or we could call ancient future science, is that we learn that we can choose our experience. We don't need to be a victim of this reality. We don't need to allow the perpetual suffering to continue. We can just say enough's enough, and we can step into our fullness. And that's how beautiful life is. And once you start walking that walk, there's no turning back, because it just gets easier and easier. It becomes more effortless. And when you are able to be in that energy, then you learn how to hold space for your brothers and sisters. And then it just becomes this beautiful collective uprising of powerful, essentially gods and goddesses. And that's the way I see all of you. I see you as brilliantly as I see myself. There is no above and below. That's duality. That's ego consciousness. We are all exactly perfect where we're at. And I'll tell you what, for those of you out there that feel like you're really stuck in that victim consciousness or that victim experience, know that I feel your pain and know how powerful you truly are. Because the only reason that we would take on so much pain and suffering is so that we can transform it on behalf of the entire collective. Meaning that all of you out there that are still in that experience, I see you. You are beautiful, you are powerful, but know that you do not deserve to continue holding on to that pain, that suffering, that guilt, that shame. You are just as deserving as I am, as we are. And it's time for all of us to hold hands as we all remember that together.
The negative programming is something that once you become aware of it, then you can start to work on it. And I guess that's what some would call your shadow work. Because I find myself, a lot of things that you don't even realize are that negative, but are negative, and they impact you. And it's really quite an experience to be living at these auspicious times, really, because
it is.
The best is young, and our divine abilities are beginning to blossom. And the more we can bring ourselves into unconditional love, as you are expressing, in unity, that's what it takes. It could be a wonderful world.
Exactly. And as Yeshua said in the great prophecy, greater things than myself ye shall do. And that's what we're here for.
That's awesome. Well, I think this has been a wonderful presentation, and I'd like to have you come back again, and we can pick another topic, or take off onto another subject.
That sounds great with me, Gail. It's a pleasure being in your presence, and it was so great to connect with you over the weekend and experience that powerful energy together. And if you ever need anything, let me know. If anybody out there needs any assistance with spiritual guidance, know that you can contact me on my website through my email. And I do not charge for my guidance. I only accept love donation. And find my YouTube, my Facebook, my Instagram. Let's stay connected and share this message, because it's going to take all of you. I can't do this alone. We need to unify in order to make a difference. And that's what I'm calling in. Collaborators, other scientists, other speakers, musicians, anything. Let's all work together to shift the collective consciousness for the greater good.
And together we are so much stronger. Once we embrace each other's essence and our divine essence, that's what people really need to tap into. Remember, you have an essence of the
Absolutely.
divine.
Well, Gail, it's been an honor. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in and anybody that's watching this in the linear future. know that you are always unconditionally loved by the universe. And since you live in a holodynamic universe, you are all everything to me.
Alrighty then. Thank you so much, Isaac. We'll talk again. And thank you, audience. And I also like to put out a thank you for some of the people that have made love donations to me. Thank you enough. I thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We have found our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are. And like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers, stronger than ever. Never say never. Don't look back now, don't look back now. Rise up, stand with each other. We are sisters and brothers, finding our place and running the race. We'll take our chance and seize the moment. Hold on tight and don't let go of all your hopes and dreams that light the way. We control our fate. Destiny awaits. We are all the actors in the stories we create. Hope will be our guide. We'll no longer hide. When we roll like thunder, feel the wonder from inside. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one